Hello, friends. We're welcome to Cinephile Saturday. We're here to wrap up the Alien franchise with Alien Covenant. It's been quite the journey. It's been interesting watching these movies one after another, discussing them, and then kind of seeing the path that the whole franchise took. But Susana has a not amused look. We'll get into it. So. Just a heads up for everyone, we do have a schedule for the next, 2 months for what we'll be discussing. We have Rebel Moon next, we're doing Blue Samurai, and then we have movies like Vanilla Sky, some other things. I'll make a post underneath for the schedule if you're interested in joining us. But anyway, Anthony is here. He's a little stuffy, but he's toughing it out.
Yeah, I got the lurgies, so I apologise. I'll try and mute myself if I'm coughing or spluttering. My name's Anthony Self. I'm a member of the Page Chewing Forums, and I'm glad that we're here at the end hurdles going on to the Alien franchise. Really, really interested to see what Susana's opinion of Covenant was. I think on the last one, Steve and I had our theories of, but we didn't want to spoil anything for Susana. We wanted her to go in completely dark, and it will be really interesting to kind of see what she thinks and for this debate.
Outlook not so good.
Yeah, Susana was not impressed at all. I'm Susana Imaginário. I'm a writer, and I run a YouTube channel called Den of the Weird, and I'm also a member of the Page Chewing Forum.
So Covenant and I have, like we mentioned last week or the week before, that I have this weird connection with Covenant. I really hated it when I first saw it. Then I watched it again about a year later, and I just went in and just kind of tried to not have any preconceptions or expectations, and I liked it a little bit more. But now this time, I'm back to not liking it.
Yeah, it's
There's
a strange
too many
one.
things.
I remember I went to cinema with my friend to watch Covenant, and after Prometheus, I still had that kind of... I kind of went into this one eyes wide shut. I didn't want to see any trailers. I didn't want to have anything to spoil my expectations. And from what I heard on the grapevine, what this was kind of going to be more of a back to the roots of like the original Alien and Aliens. So I was kind of hoping good things. And then after leaving the cinema, I just looked at my friend, and we just felt both hollow inside. We felt like they tried to dredge up like the fan nostalgic rose tinted themes of yesteryear, and it was a hodgepodge of trying to get the action of Aliens whilst trying to maintain the horror of Alien. And in respect, I think there was a lot of feedback from Prometheus, and a lot of people, a lot of studio execs were obviously saying that Ridley Scott, like, look, no one really liked the direction of where this was going, so we need to kind of add in the kind of horror, we need to add the beast back in, and they tried to kind of create a new one with the neomorph and everything like that. But overall, once again, I think there's just way too many characters in this one. Apart from, let's be honest, the four main characters. You've got Walter now, another version of David, another Michael Fassbender performance. You've got Daniels with the most ridiculous haircut in cinema history, I think. You've got Tennessee, played by, what's his name?
Kenny Powers.
Yeah. And you've got the religious captain guy who no one respects. And it's just too much of a hodgepodge of different things, different themes, different things going on that in the end it just doesn't really resonate at all. I can understand where they were trying to go. They were trying to bring the horror back to the franchise, and I think they succeeded in certain elements of that. But overall, it was just taking, a bit of this pie, a bit of that pie, putting it all together, and the pie that you got at the end was unfortunately not a great one to eat.
No, not at all. So Prometheus made me very angry. I thought it was just poorly executed throughout. I could not believe Ridley Scott was even involved. And then back in the day when I heard about Covenant and how it would explain the alien origins and how humans had created that. They were like, no, I don't wanna watch that. That's not gonna work. There's no way. And my expectations were very, very low after Prometheus, and boy, did not disappoint. I cannot believe that that's Ridley Scott. That's the same man that created Alien in the first place. And the first Alien movie, okay, wasn't perfect, but it had such an attention to detail. It had a cohesive story. It wasn't perfect. I think we talked about this. That always annoyed me, like how fast the creature went from the chest person into adult. And instead of trying to kind of fix that, it's like he doubled down on every little flaw, and just made it worse. Like I think I completely facepalmed when the whole alien came out of the chest, like fully formed, waving his hand. I need to watch Aliens again, just so I get some of the...
To get that bad taste out of your mouth.
Alien feel. Yeah, exactly. I can't unsee this. It was so wrong. Like, Prometheus, everyone was incompetent. This crew was a little bit... No, just the bar is low again. They were very incompetent, just a little bit more competent. But whose brilliant idea it was to create a crew just with couples. Like from the get-go, I knew, well, that this is gonna go wrong. Okay, obviously it went wrong. The new Ripley, I'm gonna call her that because I don't even remember the name.
Daniels.
I mean, I get what they were trying to do, Daniels, but it failed. She was so whiny throughout. It was...
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this before with Vickers in Prometheus, with the kind of do it by the book type person. And like, as you said, like my first red flag was flying high when we're introduced to the crew of the Covenant, and they're all colonists, they're all couples, there are, and immediately I thought in, the first 10 minutes is like, I'm not going to remember anyone's name in this because there's just so many people involved. Yep. And I know you obviously focus on Billy Crudup's captain character, Oram. You got someone like James Franco who like dies within the first 5 minutes of the film. Who gets engulfed in flames in his cryo. He
was the lucky one.
I mean, I know this is one of those films as well. I really don't like when they do this, when they have like these deleted scenes or they have like these extended scenes in other sort of universes. Like if you watch the kind of short film before this comes out, you'll find out more about this character. It's like, why isn't this character in the film at all? Like you have like these little flashback scenarios where James Franco's character is like heralded as like this kind. He's hanging off a cliff and he's like, oh baby, when we get our sort of house together and everything, it's going to be great. And it's like, okay, so he's a adrenaline junkie, go get him sort of fighter person, and his replacement is this kind of Oram is like considered to be like this really unlikable religious type of person. And at that point as well, I'm thinking they're obviously, it's a bit on the nose with the kind of religious theme. Like we had Elizabeth Shaw with her religious beliefs in Prometheus, and now we've got Oram's belief in this one, and both characters are portrayed as like these stupid people essentially. And I don't know if there was some kind of like weird signaling going on here, like to say like if you're a particularly religious person then you think this way. I didn't really like that. I didn't really understand it. I'm not particularly religious myself, but I would never bat anyone with a stick who has particular religious beliefs. It's just more the kind of case of this film does double, like as you said, Susana, doubles down on the thing. So then you have Daniels, who's like the most kind of logistical person, I guess you'd say, because the whole thing of what the Covenant crew are trying to do is go to this particular planet that's been mapped out years in advance to replicate Earth, essentially. They're there to kind of build up the new colony, the new generation of people. The solar flare or a nexus flare, whatever you want to call it, comes through and renders the ship inoperable for a certain amount of time. They go to repair the ship and they get this beacon. And because of the fact that Franco's captain character got fried in the cryo sleep chamber, none of them really want to go back into cryo sleep. So then they're like, well, we've got this planet that hasn't been surveyed. And let's go down there and check it out. That could be the planet that it kind of matches the one we've been looking for, so let's do it. And that's the second red flag there for me as well. It's like, come on, guys, your whole mission was to go to this particular planet that had been scientifically proven to be the kind, and now you're going to just on a whim, just because of the fact that no one really wants to get back into the cryosleep cell pods. We're going to wreck everything that has probably been years in planning just to kind of go on a whim to this planet. And then when they go on the planet, they don't even have helmets. They come walking out with like their little flappy cap headwear, and it's like, yeah, no reason they're going to get sick and get ill. But sorry, I ranted a little bit there, but yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Susan.
Again, bad decisions all around. Just back to the choice of captains for the mission. So one was adrenaline junkie, and the other one was... I mean, who would put... I don't know how competent they were, but anyway, I digress. Back to the planet. Helmets, yes, because the only thing that is important is that there's oxygen, because there's nothing else in the atmosphere that can harm you. Right. And once again, they go all in, completely unprepared. And I was very... I wasn't mad at that point, because it seems to be the thing in every alien movie, so okay, fine. But then it's like, what? Spores? So what is this mushroom saying now? Okay, never mind. Redware. So I start getting worried then. For a moment, I was optimistic when actually one of the scientists actually stopped. Oh, I'm going to take some samples and analyze it. Yes, good idea. Do that. It's just at least something. But then mushrooms happened, and backbusters happened, and the whole scene in the ship. Oh my word!
A comedy of errors, perhaps. Yeah.
I know. It's
the
like,
thing is, I can understand the spores section. I actually thought that was a good implementation of like the black goo, because obviously there's been a time jump now. It's been apparently 11 years since Prometheus, and if they've crash landed, if Elizabeth Shaw and David crash land into this planet, and some of the black goo metastasized, or whatever you want to call it, kind of went from goo into and had some impact with the nature of the planet, then I guess after that number of years, you could argue that there would be like these spore type elements to it. So I do appreciate that.
But it wasn't the whole thing about the spores, the virus, that it only attacked the flesh, the living tissue. Anyway, and then just remember something that really annoyed me as well. So Elizabeth, last we saw her, she was just driving across the planet with her bodysuit and David on her back, and she still somehow managed to go back to the ship, stop, and bring a couple of framed photographs. Oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry. It's just, there was no need. They could just found their uniform. What was with the frame pictures? Not even something that she could have tucked away on her pocket or whatever. No, they had to be framed. Just, that sort of thing really annoyed me. Just because then I can't. It's very hard for me to suspend disbelief with those things.
Yeah, it's okay. So the whole. Okay, so you think about the universe, and you think about the chances of, first of all, that signal being received by someone alone, just a ship flying by, and then you add into the odds of we only received it because we were out of the radius of the whatever. So you have to be floating in space to get this signal. The odds of that happening are just, the odds of the flare or whatever whatever damaged the ship in the first place. They get out there, repair it, and he just so happens to get this signal instead of them just receiving the signal. And watching all these movies in a row, I think we went from the retro future technology and Alien, and even a little bit of Aliens. It was more of a retro feel, and we go to this really high tech. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. It's why would they go backwards? It doesn't fit into the aesthetic of the whole franchise, what the whole franchise did in the beginning. And another thing, in the first Alien movie, why is he pretending to be human to trick everyone when they put so much faith into these robots. They put so much they're in cryo sleep, and these robots watch over them, so you know that they trust them. So the one person they probably would trust in Alien is a robot, because they put so much faith in them. They put their lives in their hands, so why wouldn't he just be a robot? It just breaks so many things that the first couple of movies did. And this happened before the events of Alien.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. And I almost, it's a couple of things with this one. It seems like Ridley Scott heard the feedback from Prometheus and said, okay, you want an alien, here you go. Kind of like, but I'm still going to do this whole Blade Runner. I'm going to merge universes because that's what's hot right now. And I'm going to make it, instead of this ancient creature who, the fossilized space jockey from the first movie, instead of playing with that idea, he just couldn't help himself and had to merge the Blade Runner stuff with this one. And it's just an ego. It seems less about the story and more about his ego is what it seems like to me. Yeah. More of like, I'm going to make this really slick, really visually stunning movie that doesn't fit the aesthetic of the first movies, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to make my other universe, I'm going to pigeonhole it in there and make it work. And it just doesn't.
It doesn't work because he retconned everything. It destroyed the universe he built. You know, it could still have done something like it as a prequel almost. Because nothing fits. It just makes me sad. I thought it was just such a waste. While I was watching the film, I was just thinking, what a waste. Just what a waste of a great monster, great characters, a great franchise. It just felt very, very wasteful.
Yeah, I mean, you have the neomorph, like the new kind of alien creature as such, that obviously the spores go into two people while they're on the planet. When they kind of touch down, one is brought back to be quarantined, and then we have the kind of bursting out from the spine, which is obviously a bit of a role reversal of the chest burster. You're going to have the back burster now. Which, you know, I mean, that scene, if it was trying to go for the kind of shock value of things like we had in Prometheus with the C-section of the squid baby, this one was the kind of juddering backburster neomorph thing. Yeah, I think like we've become too desensitized by then for it to have any kind of lasting shock factor. I did like the design of the neomorph. It's quick, it's agile, it kind of shares more with the kind of Alien 3 dog alien type creature design, but it's kind of, you know, albino sort of white in that respect. Then they have the whole, like, you know, slipping up in the blood, which was just farcical, I thought, that kind of part. The lady who kind of quarantines the two people inside the medical bay, then sort of gets a shotgun. The thing bursts out from the room anyway, so it's not much of a quarantined room if something can just smash the glass so easily, and she kind of shoots at the fuel tanks, and the whole, like, shuttle ship explodes, leaving the kind of crew stranded on the planet. Then the other guy starts, coughing and spluttering. They're surrounded in this kind of wheatgrass area. I mean, that was, as scenes go, that was a good action scene. Like, you have, like, these, you know, the cool green laser dots on their machine guns. And you have this kind of neomorph alien flizzering through. But I mean, once again, we've seen that kind of stuff like in Jurassic Park, you know, the whole like velociraptors running through the kind of wheaty sheet.
Exactly.
And this was actually meant to be, once again, with the hodgepodge thing, I think they took some design elements from Alien 3, because there was meant to be this in one of the earlier draft versions of the script, when they had like the whole kind of like wooden planet, sort of spherical station, whatever you want to call it, with the monks in there instead of the prisoners. There was meant to be a scene where it was meant to be like having these sort of dog aliens running through the tall grass in that respect. And then obviously Jurassic Park did it with the velociraptors, and then therefore you couldn't really do it now because it's been done already. And then David arrives with his long hair, his long luscious locks, as he does the flare gun and brings them to like his little home base that he's been doing for a while. And None of them. Yes, once again, it's that thing of like. I mean, I guess you could argue that apart from like where we saw in Prometheus, you had scientists. These are just colonists. They're probably skilled in carpentry and like building things and whatnot, but they're not scientists really. Apart from the one woman who's taken the samples and stuff, they're just. I don't know. Like, this is a question for you guys. Do you think they were meant to be portrayed as just like ordinary Joes? Like, do you think they were trying to go for that aesthetic for like the blue-collared workers again, like in Alien? Because I definitely got that feeling that they were trying to go for a more like, whereas the crew from the Prometheus were like all scientists, now we're going to have like regular Joes, kind of, so to speak, with blue-collared like workers, and therefore we're meant to empathize with them a lot more in this respect. I don't know.
Kind of now that you mention it, it does kind of seem like they were going back to the whole anyone can colonize. It's kind of like it did seem a little bit like they aren't experts. They aren't. They're just normal people flying through space. Which, again, they put their trust in the robot, and they have that's if so. Then the robot is the person taking care of them. Where in the first movie, it seemed more about a group of people who were capable. They were capable of, well, they were too capable because they all died. Yeah. But yeah, they were knowledgeable enough.
Like, yeah, they knew what they were doing.
And they're just, and they're like blue collar, average Joes, wrench turners that were, in some ways, like smarter and more capable than this team of colonists.
So, I mean, is this kind of like something to say about writing in general? Like, script writing has just gone so downhill since, like, I mean, it just, there just seem to be people doing things for, like, things' sake. Like Daniels, like, I don't really know what her job was. It was never really sort of specified, or maybe it went over my head, but she's just there giving Oram a hard time because, he's like, people don't really want to sort of like, she's giving him, shit because like he's not making decisions as the new captain, and obviously she's heartbroken as well because her partner's just been killed. I get that, but also at the same time, what is it that she does on the ship? The only other people that I can remember really off the top of my head is so Oram's the captain. Yeah, you've got Tennessee, who's like the pilot, but then there's like 4 different pilots in this one as well, so it's who has authority here? Because there's that point where there's like an electrical storm that happens in the planet, and there's like a threshold of like, how low the Covenant ship can go down to pick them up. And he's questioned by like 3 other people, and he's like, yeah, it's fine, we can do this, it's all right. And they're like, well, think of all the thousands of other colonists that are still sleeping. And it's like, okay, but, so there doesn't seem to be really any kind of, not hierarchy, but there doesn't seem to be a kind of, for me anyway, personally, I saw it as like, I don't know whose jobs are, like, I don't know what people are doing. They just all seem to be like running around. Like when they, when the ground team like touch base, you do obviously have like security detail there. Fine, I get that. But then you have the scientist lady who's picking up samples. Fine, I get that. But then what are the other people doing? They're just like walking around going, oh, I just thought I'd get a breath of fresh air on this new land. Like, yeah, I think going back to what I was saying earlier, I think there's just like too many people. If they'd once again condensed, they could have had a story. You didn't have to have like the partners element of it. You could have had like, yeah, we're colonists, but you could have had like a core team that for some reason have to be awake during the kind of space travel, or maybe like a maintenance crew. I would have preferred that if it was like maintenance crews that get awoken every, because I can't remember, how long does it take, how long is their journey taking them? Is it like meant to be decades, isn't it, that they're going from like Earth to this new planet? And obviously the cryo sleep thing happens.
Like 7 or 8 years.
Okay, 7 or 8 years. I mean, they could have, I would have personally found more sort of pleasure in it if you had this like small maintenance crew that had been woken up because of some kind of disruption or this flare, this solar flare or whatever it was, and they were like the core team that you had to kind of like empathize with. They didn't want to wake up other colonists because they couldn't for mechanical reasons, etc., etc. That would have been a better film. Whereas you've got like all these partners who are going around finding stuff, but then obviously they find David, and then as you said, the AI aspect of this whole thing, this whole theme of AI taking over, overrides everything else. Like, we do see the engineers, the whole part at the end of Prometheus when they fly away and Elizabeth Shaw wants to find out where these engineers come from. We find out that, in between the films, David killed Elizabeth Shaw. Okay? So you have one of the main characters from the last film just killed off screen,
Again.
And then, is this meant to, I'm still, to this day now, a little more, like, he just releases all the black urns, goo, spores, nanomachines, whatever they may be, sort of thing, on the indigenous people of this planet. To play gods? Like, what's the end game here?
Waste.
What was the point
Why
there?
would he do that? It's just being evil for the sake of being evil because he could. I don't know. I thought I wanted to know more about that civilization.
I think, it was lost in translation. Nice. I know there's probably other... I know there was a more detailed scene, I think, that was cut. But I think if he was doing his kind of evil scientist thing where he wanted to experiment on these people, so by dropping the weapons of mass destruction or the spores of, whatever they may be on these indigenous people, was he then trying to kind of investigate and collect evidence as to what happened to them? Because they just seem to all die off like the original engineer guy when he took the cup at the top of the waterfall and then sort of disintegrated. Because you have these like massive piles of bodies all around, but you don't really seem to... There doesn't seem to be any consequence from they just all seem to die. Mm-hmm. Whereas we've known from once again, this might be another plot hole, but it goes into the evidence that we've seen so far is that when people, or maybe this is their DNA because they're like a different species, they react differently to it. With humans, they turn into like monster things. We saw that in Prometheus. So once again, they're changing the kind of storyline, or they're changing the plot developments in this way, and it just didn't really sit well with me.
Well, in Prometheus, they do line up DNA from the engineer and human DNA. It's the same. It's at least close. So you would think it'd react similar to humans as it would to engineers. But
yeah,
to your point about screenwriting, I think the level of intelligence in the characters is gone down because it's for the sake of convenience to move the story forward, because it's like a lazy... Instead of making the story work around the people, it's just make the people all really dumb and make it easier just to get from point A to point B with the least amount of resistance.
But then, if we can't, if the viewer can't identify or sympathize with the characters, there's no point. It doesn't matter how you kill them, any gruesome way. It doesn't matter because you don't care. You don't get to know them. You don't care to even like them. In Alien, we got to know them. We got to know what they did, what was their role in the ship, we got to see their interactions. Same thing in Aliens. A lot of them died at the beginning that we knew very little about. But even the ones that died early on, we had some idea of their personalities and their role in the crew. And even Alien 4, we got to know the crew before it started getting killed. In this one, no, the only thing we knew about them was who the spouse was. So we could guess that, someone was going to get upset when the spouse died and you're going to make a mistake. That was the pattern throughout. Mm-hmm. They were willing to sacrifice anything to save their spouse. So it was the only thing they care about. And is the viewer supposed to only care about that? That's beyond selfish. And it's so two-dimensional.
Yeah. With Daniels, for example, who's obviously discount bargain bin Ripley sort of thing, the only kind of one thing that we get really from her is that she was going to build a house on this new planet sort of thing with Franco. Like they were going to build the house from the ground up, and she had the nail necklace thing, which really is just a plot device at the very end that we find out that Walter is not Walter, Walter is David. So the one emotional link that you have to this character is really a plot device to kind of make the audience aware that Walter is David. And to be honest with you, unless I don't know how you guys felt, but when they did the old switcheroo, it was like I called it out immediately. It was pretty obvious to me what was happening, what was going on.
to anyone. I think it was one of the worst switches. I mean, there wasn't even any doubt. They tried. Oh, they tried when the alien was on the ship, but no, it's such an old trope.
To me as well, I thought like,
Oh dear.
For me, it was like a movie. I know, not wanting to say like, you know, a beginning, middle, and end, but this for me was like 3 different movies in one. The first half an hour to 40 minutes is the crew of the Covenant coming down, making a decision to come down on the ship. The second half is the kind of finding out about David's experiments with the eggs and like what he's been up to since his time alone. And then the third half, when they get back on the ship, just turns into this kind of action fest movie that all 3 seem displaced within each other. It's bizarre the way that the fluidity of this goes. The pacing is really off in this film. Like, whereas Prometheus had its issues, I felt like you were able to kind of define what it was. But with this one, it just seemed like some studio execs were getting involved, or someone in a position of power was like, we need to have more of this now. We need to have more of that. And the pacing just is hindered because of it. Like, there's literally the scene where when they find out about the neomorph and they find out that maybe David isn't what he appears to be, and you have Aurum going in, and we have another Kane moment where Aurum is like led into this sort of cave area where there's the egg, and like, is that meant to be fan service to say like, you know, David has created the eggs? He is the ultimate egg man now. He is the alien queen because he's like mixed DNA or whatever. Once again, it's not really established what he's been doing in his time. We understand from the pictures that he has in his cave wall that he's been experimenting with different animals and like different things, obviously to that planet. But he's effectively now the guy who's created the alien egg, right? Is that the thing we're going on down now? That it's not the actual creature, the derelict ship that we find in Alien? Is that going to be something that's been created from David?
That's where the egg from Aliens came from, at the end of Aliens.
But how the egg is... Yeah. But they were in a different ship. He went off in a human ship, not in the architect's ship. So I can't. But the egg was organic. I mean, at least they could have, created something slightly different. Because again, that goes against what we know about the eggs, that they were laid by the queen. Where is the queen? So was David laying eggs behind the scenes? And speaking about pacing, I was kind of not confused exactly, but again, I was just facepalming. Who edited that? Because it's like whoever wrote couldn't write a scene with more than 2 or 3 people in it. They were in that temple or whatever building it was, and the scenes were so disjointed. Like David would go and talk to this person and then talk to the other person, and then show the other. And in the meantime, what were they doing? They were just admiring the view, talking to each other in small, all divided, each one in their corner. You don't get any sense of time, which maybe that was intentional because, again, the alien went from tiny to big very fast. But yeah, David seemed to be like in all places at once, and everyone else was just off stage for most of the time and then just pop up when it was needed. It just made no sense.
Yeah, so
you never actually see them all together apart from the beginning.
Yeah. You have the couple that you have like Tennessee and a couple of pilot people up in the Covenant ship that are above the electrical storm clouds. Then you have the kind of temple bit where Aurum and Daniels are just kind of chatting around because they need to get the radio to a sort of point where they can communicate with Covenant. David goes off, has a conversation with Walter. What's the famous line? Like, finger my flute or whatever it is. That I burst out laughing when I...
I'll do the fingering.
I'll do the fingering. Oh. They must... I mean, come on. They must have known when filming it. It was like... come on.
No. Exactly.
I mean, I like... So bad.
I like the Fassbender on Fassbender, when they go to the grave and David's misquoting the writer sort of thing when it shows that maybe he's starting to go a bit ash, he's malfunctioning a little bit. So there is certain elements that I liked about that. It just kind of went on a bit too long. And then, they're doing like a mad dash back to the transportation that comes down to pick them up. And the neomorph, you get this kind of sense that maybe there's a Frankenstein monster ideology going on, because David obviously sees the grown neomorph who's already killed a person in the temple, and then it gets shot and killed, and he like loses his shit all over it kind of thing, because obviously this is the first alien adult that he's seen that he's crafted. I don't know, but the spore came not from his eggs, it came from the spore from the ground, and what the neomorph came from that. What Orum's alien, the one that does the little dance, or the little kind of comes out, does his little dance move. That was fun to watch.
That was cursing.
I think another thing that hinders especially the last two is this. They're trying to include these grandiose ideas and this religious stuff, and it's just like, why? Like, why do you why just make it a good movie? Like, you don't have to have all these epic, like themes and religious ideas and playing around with belief, and it's like, I choose to believe and all that crap. Like, what does it add to the movie? Nothing.
Yeah, I think they really missed a trick there with Orum as the character as well, because he's obviously reluctantly put into this role as captain once Franco's character gets blasted, and you can he's a conflicted character, and I actually do like that. Billy Crudup is a fantastic actor, and his own wife, like or partner sort of thing, tells him, you have to lead the herd, essentially. So we know, like, maybe he was designated as like the pastor. He was going to be the church-going person for this group when they finally settle down on the planet and start colonizing. He's then thrust into this captain role, and no one seems to like him. No one seems to. His decisions are null and void. So then, instead of having some kind of narrative arc where maybe what could have been done is that he unifies the crew on the ground. So everything's blowing up. You've had you've had the shuttle pod that's blown up. Many people are dying. You have these alien creatures going on. You could have had him then unify the group and bring them together. And it didn't have to be through a religious kind of context. It could have just been the fact that, as people, but they don't really do anything with it. They just leave it. And then he blindly follows this robot who they've only known for like half an hour into this creepy ass chamber, looking at some eggs, and then gets face hugged. It's just, it feels like to me, there were certain ideas, certain stringent points where they were like these threads of ideas. Oh, we could do this, we could do that. And then they just went, well, we'll just have him get killed off and we'll have another alien burst out of him sort of thing. So, yeah. But I thought that was one of the biggest disappointments, was that his character could have done so much and could have actually had a really good arc, and ultimately was left disappointed by it all. Yeah. And Daniels, once again, she just goes from belligerent person on the ship to Rambo at the end, flying off hooks of this transport. Where did that come from? You have to have that suspension of disbelief for audience viewers. Like, once again, going back to Alien, we've talked about it in all these conversations, where that is such a great transition for her character, who is a do-it-by-the-book sort of person, goes along and then becomes a survivor. Whereas with Daniels, it just appears that, this stuff's going down, and then she just suddenly picks up a gun, and she's now like Sarah Connor sort of thing. Now she's here to kick ass and shoot bubblegum, and she's all out of gum,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's completely over the top, unnecessary. The problem is, well, there's many problems, but why do they have to mix the universes? I mean, I get why they were the appeal of all the religious stuff, and wondering what is life, who is the creator, what is the meaning of this and the other. That's all beautiful. But it could just be the subplot.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to mix the two. You know,
I think you could have had,
yeah.
with David's character, obviously he's been there for XYZ amount of time. I think, once again, another missed opportunity. You could have had David reflect on that kind of religious aspect, because he's ultimately becoming God, right? Or he sees himself as a godlike figure. And there's a lot that could be done there with Aurum, with Daniels, with him, with, like, in terms of him trying to maybe explain his godlike. I mean, I think even him and Walter do have a conversation about that, sort of when they're fiddling their flutes and everything. You know, in the respect of man created us, we creating this other thing. I get it, we get it, right? We know what the sort of subtext is, but you could have had I just don't think it was handled or written very well to kind of elaborate on that. There could have been a lot to do there with this machine creating, like, the cycle of life, as you said, like, you know, man creates robot creates this organic biomechanical beast creature, and the circle then, you know, needs one another to work and everything like that. You could have gone down that road to a certain extent. You could have played more with David's malfunctioning sort of parameters. You could have dealt with the fact that, you know, maybe he's created these things because he's gone a bit twitchy in the head. Yeah, I just, once again, it boils down to a battle with him doing like some Jason Bourne style karate moves with another version of himself.
So in Prometheus, we learned that the engineers planned to kill humans, right? Their whole thing was they were going to go to Earth and kill off all the humans.
Yeah.
Speaking of that circle, did they intend to kill the humans because we created robots? Is that what they're playing at?
I think Elizabeth Shaw's character, doesn't she mention in Prometheus at some point that, like, they're deciding to arbitrarily wipe us out just so they can maybe start anew, like a clean slate? And maybe with David's character in this one, although we see his pictures and his illustrations and his kind of, like, you're led to, well, my assumption of it was that we're led to believe that maybe he's tried experimenting with different strands of DNA with different animals of the planets, and they've been failed experiments, perhaps, maybe. That's why he's so upset when the neomorph gets shot when they're in the temple, because, like, maybe this is his kind of first creation that he's seen that's actually, in his mind, a perfect organism, and then that has that kind of, you know, connotation with Ash from the original one, mentioning that, you know, the beast, the xenomorph, is the perfect organism. Maybe
This whole thing about the perfect organism, right? It's not perfect because it's dependent on other organisms. So, yeah, like, I guess the closest it came was in Alien 4 with the queen that managed to give birth. But otherwise, they are dependent of, you know, another species go there and poke into the egg. And it just doesn't seem that perfect to me. Just an aside.
Yeah. So now I'm wondering if the engineers realized how dangerous robots could be, so that's why they decided to, I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting to see if, I mean, Ridley Scott has kind of said that this new trilogy of films would be going, like, you can see that it's cantering towards the AI element, right? You know, sort of towards the end of this one, they get picked up on the transportation trawler, whatever it may be. They all think they're safe, but the guy who got splashed with acid actually had a facehugger on. So there's another alien now in the ship running around. We do get the kind of alien vision like we did in Alien 3 with this one, which it kind of takes me out of the whole thing, to be honest with you, because I've mentioned before about when you have like a boogeyman type character and when you get to sort of see what the thing is seeing and whatnot. For me anyway, that's just always a massive out. But then, it transpires that Walter is not Walter. Walter is David, and he's got these embryos down his throat, down his gullet, I guess, because as Daniels goes to her cryosleep bed once the alien's been chucked out into space, yet again, another, like, let's blast it out of the airlock. You'd think of it, you'd like to think there'd be like a new way of killing the beast, so to speak, not just kind of rehashing ground that we've already done before again. I suppose in this one it gets like poleaxed by like some kind of tractor or something like that, so it gets blown out of the airlock. Everyone's safe, everyone's happy, and then Daniels goes into cryosleep. Mentions the woods, the nail necklace thing that they were going to create the house. She obviously sees that Walter, who is not Walter is David, doesn't understand what she's saying because that's a prior conversation that she had with Walter. And he's like, oh, toodaloo, have a little nice sleep now. I'm going to take over the ship. Bye. And then regurgitates these like embryos. Maybe moving forward, that like the egg sac thing, whatever he has, is an alien queen, perhaps, maybe. Who knows? But it's looking like going forward that if there was another film now from this, it obviously has to go from the Covenant ship, right? That has thousands of colonists. So my assumption would be that from these 2 DNA samples that David has regurgitated like a bird into these freezing cells, is that he's going to infect the rest of the ship. So he's going to have thousands of donors, in inverted commas, donors that he's going to be able to use these things on. How does that lead to the derelict ship on LV-426 with the crew of the Nostromo coming down and Kane seeing these thousands of eggs? Is that going to be a direct link there? Or will there be an alien queen? Or, who knows? But I think AI is like malfunctioning AI. Because, I mean, let's be honest, AI is such a hot topic at the moment. That it could go down that road. And I think the way that David's character has been led up in Prometheus and in Covenant now, it's like he's going to be like the main protagonist, antagonist in the third, the third one gets made. But I definitely feel like his character has come at the cost of others in that respect. I mean, are we meant to empathize with David? I don't know. Like in the first one in Prometheus, sure you were, because the rest of the crew were just treating him like a subservient robot, right? And that's what I guess he is to a certain extent. Wayland was like using him, like they had the kind of antagonistic sort of theory with Vickers and him, because obviously Vickers was Wayland's daughter, but she felt that Wayland was giving more precedence to David. But then David ultimately turned on Wayland. And now he's his own, in his mind, God type creature person thing now. So how are we meant to empathize with this person or this robot? How are we meant to empathize with this AI? I'm not sure. I don't know where they can go with this third film. What are your thoughts?
Oh gosh, I don't want to know. Just looking at the pictures of the new series, I don't know how, but I bet they're gonna make it worse. I mean, I can imagine like another crew, kind of like these ones, but just much younger and much stroppier, and I don't want to see that.
Yeah, I think David will experiment on the crew, on all the colonists, and it's like his laboratory. I guess that's where he's going to perfect the beast or whatever. But if the space jockey or the engineer in Alien is fossilized, the whole timeline's broken. It makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. So we'll see how. I don't think we'll ever even see the third movie. Yeah. The TV series is ignoring Prometheus and Covenant.
I just had a horrible thought. What if they include time travel?
Oh no. No.
Yeah. Oh yes. Because you're right, that doesn't fit. Even if we give, the benefit of the doubt, because the crew that found the space jockey, that they were not, proper scientists. Maybe they were mistaken, petrification or age with just their anatomy, I don't know, or the suit they were wearing. Let's even giving that benefit of the doubt, it would not fit. Mm-hmm. The technology, the timeline would just not fit. So enter time travel, because that's what it's for. No, it's not. You don't think David could find a way to time travel? I think he could. He can do anything.
Yeah, he could. Well, the TV series, the creator or the writer or the executive producer of the TV series is openly saying he met with Ridley Scott and they are ignoring Prometheus and Covenant. It almost sounds like they're trying to decanonize these.
Yeah.
Just kind of that's kind of the feel I'm getting. It sounds like they're moving that direction. Yeah.
I'm tentatively hopeful of the TV series because they're focusing more on the company rather than, the beast or anything. So I'm looking at like what's been successful TV show wise recently. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to go down the road of sort of almost like a Succession vying for power within Wayland Yutani type of show, like in what's the one with Damian Lewis, like Billions or Millions or whatever it is, sort of thing, like along those lines. So there's going to be corporate sabotage, there's going to be backstabbing, there's going to be all this kind of stuff going on, and then the alien creature in the background is going to be more of a subtexty type thing, or more of a subplot rather than the main thing. So I'm kind of curious as to find out what's going to happen with the TV series. With Romulus, I'm less so happy about in terms of what they're doing. Yeah, like with, hey, we've got these plucky young kids on this world, on this planet, and we're just going to make it like a slasher, which was once again the whole reason. The Alien was the anti-slasher horror film of its time, sort of thing. It was going against the grain for that reason, and what they've done is they've come weirdly full circle, and they're trying to make the creature like this, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, boogeyman type thing. And it's like that was the complete opposite of what the whole point of it was. So TV show, tentatively hopeful / optimistic about. Alien Romulus, not so much. It's the House of Mouse as well. I don't see it being anything but a cash grab, trying to bait nostalgia from fans of the original series and stuff like, or the original 2 films. And I don't think we're going to see a third film in this trilogy, i.e. Prometheus, Covenant. I believe it was meant to be called Paradise originally. That was the original plan. Whether that's still going to be the case, I don't know. I just think, when was Covenant released? That was like 2015, 17, yeah. It's been a good couple of years now, and I would liken to think that in Hollywood there's probably about 17 odd scripts or rewrites or something going on of what happens. So, and the kind of, the fanboy in me would like to read an online leaked version of it and sort of, see if it's worthy to be made, sort of thing, into production. And half of me would like to see it happen just to kind of, so it's, it's all wrapped up in a nice bow. Whether they full chain circle it round to the Nostromo crew coming down to LV-426, don't know. Or whether it's a standalone thing that, David goes off on his own adventures and something happens there. Don't know. But, I don't think it's going to see the light of day.
I'm here running an awful plot of David time travels, creates the engineers create humans, then humans create androids, and engineers want to destroy humans for creating androids, and the cycle continues.
Like a weird Ouroboros snake eating itself, replicating itself again and again. Yeah,
horrible story.
I think time travel might be on the table. It has to be, right, to make it work, because it just doesn't work right now.
Just a personal aside, whatever you're listening. I love time travel. I write about time travel, and time travel stories are about redemption, are not about physics or about fixing. It's just about redemption, and seeing them misused so much of late, it's just heartbreaking. It makes me very sad.
I'm less keen on time travel.
I hope
things.
I'm wrong. I want to be wrong.
It's like I said, like within the MCU, as soon as they introduce the quantum world and time traveling type things and blips and blops and blaps, it's like, you've lost me now. If it's done in a kind of way that makes something like, you know, I know it's not thematic, it's not time travel as such, but like something like the butterfly effect, like Susana, what you're talking about, like with redemptive arcs and stuff. So you have this guy who has the ability to, you know, go back and change things, but the whole arc of that is every time he goes back, he makes things worse. And that's a kind of common trope that we've known for a long time when it comes down to sort of time traveling things and stuff like that, Groundhog Day type-esque elements of repeated loops or, you know, stuff like that. So to me, yeah, I mean, if they go down that road, and they probably will, let's face it, they probably will.
Why make Romulus when this trilogy isn't finished?
Don't know. Good question. I think...
Was it supposed to be a trilogy? Mm-hmm. Or they were just making movies as... Okay.
Ridley Scott has said that he wanted to do like he wanted to do a trilogy of films, Prometheus, Covenant, and then the third one, whatever it may be called. That's now been, with the kind of release of the TV show and then Alien Romulus, which isn't part of the trilogy, that's its own film in its own, like, canon, I guess. I guess what they're trying to do is like reboot it again, like in terms of, you know, like we see like DC are sort of trying to reboot their franchise now, and they'll just be like, we're going to introduce these young plucky characters, and they're going to be people that you want to get behind and people that you want to see live, and then go on and they'll make a new trilogy of films from that, I guess. Yeah.
I think Romulus takes place after Aliens.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a way for them to kind of branch off, retcon the last 4 movies.
Yeah.
4 movies.
I mean, we've seen it all before with franchises that like will bring back old IP characters, and I just hope they don't do that with Romulus. I hope they don't sort of try and dangle the carrot of, you know, this could be a universe where we see, you know, a Ripley character or one of the thing, la 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 la. It's done now. Like, create new characters, create a new IP with this. Like, create something new that we can get behind, and like old fans can like actually rally and go, you know what, I like this. I like where they're going with this. I like the ideas of this. I like the themes of this. Unfortunately, I think with the Prometheus, Covenant, and whatever the third film may be, they've just tried to cram too many themes into the storylines without actually expanding upon them or trying to deliver some type of narrative arc with them. Like who are we meant to be? Who's our main protagonist in these films? You know, Prometheus was Elizabeth Shaw, and she gets unceremoniously killed off. Then you have Daniels, who is meant to represent this kind of kick-ass, take no shit kind of Ripley, Sarah Connor character, but does she deserve it? And now who's it going to be in the third one? Like, you know, we don't know. It's all over the place. At least with the original trilogy of films, you had Ripley, who we saw her character up, we saw something go on there, and she, you know, with the characters that she interacted with, like you've got like these magnificent characters on her travels. You've got like Bishop, you've got Dallas, you've got Brett, you've got Parker, you've got Ash, you've got Hicks, you've got Hudson, like all these brilliant characters in their own right. Name me 3 characters from Covenant that, you know, you could get behind, or would want to see further more of. I was just thinking that
I know the names of the characters of, you know, all the other movies, and I've seen him a lot more of that many times, but I couldn't even. I mean, these characters in Prometheus and Covenant, they were so forgettable. I mean, we didn't get to know them before they were killed, not even to learn their names. Mm-hmm. Even the way the dialogue was written, there was nothing that you could kind of hold on, you know, that character is the one that does this or that character. You know, like the little aside in Aliens, when Hudson goes and corrects the Sergeant Hudson, you know, he's Hicks, because the names are kind of similar, and immediately you know exactly, you can distinguish. just these little details that are so important just in the script. They're not there. They just assume. I don't know if they don't care, or if they just think the audience doesn't care, or they just rely on just the one saying, no, the audience doesn't know anything about this character except that he's married to the other character. I knew that. I immediately, from early on, I knew who was married with which, to whom. I'm sorry. But how is that relevant, apart from, knowing that when one dies, the other is going to screw up? That was it. That was, it's too basic. It's sad.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of things just didn't make sense this time, more so than before, which is a little sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were trying to go for a horror. I think they were trying to get back to grassroots with Covenant, but it just became too much of a mixed palette. I think they were just like trying to put too many things into the pot, and unfortunately, what they ended up doing was just rehashing old ground that we've seen before, and therefore not bringing anything new to the table. I'm not saying you had to, I mean, they bring a new kind of version of the alien with the neomorph. Okay, I get that. It comes out your back instead of your front. Okay, fine. They bring in the kind of fact that David is potentially ultimately the person who created the eggs, or the biomechanical version of the alien that we've come to know from previous years. I don't know. Like, as you said, like they could have done something like with the engineers, more so in this one. You've gone back to their home planet essentially, and then all you've done really is wipe them out in a very short scene. You've just wiped them all out. There's no hit. You don't find out anything really about their history. You don't really find out anything about their way of life or what they do. I'm not saying, I'm not waiting for some David Attenborough, hour show talking about like the engineer's life cycle and stuff. I don't need that. But also at the same time, you're not giving anything new. You're just arbitrarily wiping out this civilization because, for reasons.
But was it the engineers' home planet though? Because they didn't quite look like the engineers. They looked like another version of us.
Yeah. I mean, it could be some kind of subspecies version, or it just could be some.
Yeah, they look a lot more human. Yeah. They were smaller, and their features were more human-like than the engineers. The engineers, I was thinking this the last time we talked, because they were so. I mentioned that this kind of perfection almost, on the brink of being almost disturbing. I wonder if the engineers themselves were engineered. I don't know, kind of, that would be an interesting question. And there was something I wasn't sure. I know there are deleted scenes. I didn't even bother to go and look. But I remember thinking, wasn't they supposed to go to the engineers on planet? This doesn't look like it. That they don't look like them. So what was up with that? At the very least, they would be able to defend themselves. I don't know. I expected something different.
Or at least know that something's wrong, who's piloting the ship. I don't know. It's too bad. But it does sound like they're trying to distance themselves from Prometheus and Covenant, just because, like we've talked about through all these movies, is sometimes it's better to not know. Sometimes it's better to not know things. Yeah. Or to at least get hints or something.
To know.
Got to leave a bit of mystery. I mean, that's what made Alien so good. Like, they come to this derelict spacecraft, and there's, even though it's so alien that you're sitting there and you're kind of, what do humans fear? The unknown, right? So they're tapping into that kind of primal fear. And you have these things that were wonderfully created by Geiger, sort of thing. And the whole aspect of your brain, your imagination does the work for you, because you're thinking, what about this? What about that? What about that? And then to be kind of explained, but not really explained about the reasoning behind it, just leaves you a bit confused, and it leaves you a bit like, well, I mean, you know, I would once again, as I said before in our other chats, like I just would have preferred a Colonial Marines film. You know, bring back like a ragtag motley crew of Marines that are going off and they're, you know, doing this and doing that. Yeah, take my money. I'll watch that because I know what I'm getting myself into. Could it be an action film? Sure, it could have been. Let's go that way. That's what I would have preferred to. Fine, you have these themes of religion and creationism and stuff like that. Fine, that's great. But then actually expand upon it. Like, okay, just saying, oh, I've created David, or Wayland's like, I've created the perfect sort of AI type thing. But is it perfect? No. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're gonna explain, do it properly. Yeah.
The evolution of it just seems a little bit off. Seeing the evolution of the xenomorph, I don't know. It just kind of it just takes away from the mystery and the horror of the xenomorph we have in the first films. When you see these little, you know, like these little wild animals, I don't know, just they seem
Diminishes it.
Yeah, they seem so much more intelligent. Like in Aliens, they find a way to get into the buildings. They, you know, they learn from their mistakes, and these just seem very primal and messy. And to get from there to where we see them in something like even Alien, it's a big leap of, you know, their evolution. It just doesn't make sense. But well,
yeah, I mean, you could argue like with the Aliens, what James Cameron's sort of vision in that respect was like, you know, even Hudson refers to them like bees, man. They're like bees, you know, like this hive colony that like their sole purpose is to repopulate, right? They're there to get the colonists, to bring them, to make them incubators for more of the aliens. With the other films, like you've always had like one version of a monster. With Alien 3, you had either the ox or dog alien type thing that was just trying to survive, I guess. Then in Resurrection, it was more of a kind of case of they were experimented on. And then with Prometheus, don't really see any at all. With Covenant, once again, you just have like a singular sort of alien creature in different versions. Like there's 3 different aliens, isn't there, in Covenant? There's the neomorph type one that bursts out from the back, first of all. Then you have the other one that kind of... then you have the egg from Aurum. But they're all 3 different variations, if you know what I mean. So there's no like collective hive mind working at play here. It's just they're all very singular in their own ways, and it loses that whole appeal of, you know, they're intelligent animals that are trying to repopulate and trying to, you know, birth more of their own, because effectively the perfect organism is something that wants to thrive and wants to become like a you know, like a virus or something. It needs to thrive, it needs to emerge and expand, and you don't really get that with the most recent versions of things here. So
and they didn't use practical effects for the creature or the xenomorphs either. That kind of took away from it too.
Yeah, I mean, the neomorph I did enjoy. Like, you know, when CGI is done well, when you don't notice it, then fine. Like even when it's kind of when they're in a temple and it's kind of decapitated the woman who's going to wash her face, and you just see it there sort of breathing, that was fine. But then when you have the alien running out in the daylight when they're on the trawler and you see its elongated arms, and it kind of loses its kind of danger. I don't know if that's the right word, but like it loses its kind of appeal, because we've always seen it slinking in the shadows. We've always seen it in the darkness. It's like there's a reason why you don't see Batman during the day, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Because he's more menacing at night, and it's the same thing here. When you see it in the daylight and you see a CGI alien on all fours like smashing its head, it looks good because the effects are good. But like, let's say 20 years down the line, is it going to look that good? I don't think so, with what's going on, you know, and how we're ever growing with the technology and the kind of things that we can do. The best of CGI has always been the CGI that you don't notice. When you notice it, our human brains scramble it and say, this is not real, therefore I am disengaging and I am detaching from it, you know?
Yep.
And I know there's some deleted scenes with Susani mentioned the deleted scenes. There's some deleted scenes that I guess connect a couple of things, but when you have to depend on deleted scenes, it just I mean, I don't know. But killing Shaw after all that in Prometheus, to have Shaw killed and then to see her just kind of dissected and just kind of experimented on his experiment. It's reminding me a lot of Alien 3 with Newt and Hicks.
Yeah. I don't know if Noomi Rapace has had a kind of conflict of what she was doing at the time, or whether she just wanted... I mean, yeah, it just seemed a waste. And there's like a throwaway comment, isn't there, of like, oh yes, she reattached my head and made me better, and it's like, okay.
And then I tortured and killed her.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Like, why would she do that? Okay, not my favorite character. Nothing against the actress; she's amazing. I mean, everyone in Prometheus, they did the best they could with the characters they had. Not complaining about the actors, but why would she attach the head? It was perfectly fine with just, functioning with just the head. All the help. I mean, after all he did to her, to the crew, to everything, why give him the
once
agency?
again,
I mean,
that's your
personally, I
that's
would
the
just skip the
interesting
head.
story. Yeah, like she knows that David killed her partner, right? In Prometheus.
Yeah,
she knows
why?
that. So there you have a story. You have a story right there. You could have had it, at the end of Prometheus, where they blast off to find the homeworld planet of the engineers. The next story, could have started with them, their kind of sort of reluctant relationship. They have to like lean on each other. Maybe Shaw's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need your help. He's like, but I'm just a head. I can't really do much. It's just being a head. She was like, but yeah, you're a treacherous son of a bitch. I'm not going to put your head back on. I know what you're up to. You could have had this whole thing play out. And I'm sure there probably are versions of scripts where that is the case. But that would have been a lot more interesting, I think. Like their dynamic would have been... You set it up so well in Prometheus. Maybe they have to rely on each other. They only can survive with there being, David being able, fully bodied, to help her out in a situation or something. Like even that would have been far superior to kind of watch and see how that played out. And then the inevitable... I would love to have seen a film just with like Shaw and David and their travels to go to the alien homeworld, and they're trying to survive, and it becomes like a buddy cop show or something, and you get to that moment at the end where you think and then he just snaps her neck or something. It's like, oh, you still went ahead and did it. Like, that would have had more resonance. But hey ho. I'm sure there's probably some comics or there's some kind of literature out there that kind of goes into it full depth. About what happened between them, but unfortunately we don't get to see that on the screen. We just see a kind of, as you said, a little photo frame with her dog tags, and then later on we see a dissected head neck thing that goes in with more Geiger design. Yeah.
Missed opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah, it's too bad. So, I guess.
But this was fun. I mean, if not for these discussions, I probably would never bother to watch. So now I know. And it was great to rewatch the first movies again, which I'll probably again soon, just to keep my good image of aliens in my head. Because, but it was very interesting to see the progression of everything: special effects, cinematography, writing, even acting from the 70s to now. It's just, well, let's just say it didn't quite evolve the way that I would hope. It felt like after Aliens, it just kept losing itself a bit more.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's kind of lost its identity over the years. Steve, I'd be more than happy to join another kind of conversation like this when the TV show comes out. Discuss what happens. Yeah, no, I think you're right, Suzanne. I think it lost its identity. Probably, you see the original trilogy will always have a place in my heart. Even the third one, which I know is like the dark
Yes.
horse of the original trilogy, but I still have a place for Alien 3 in my heart. That should have been the swan song. That should have been the end of it. I mean, Ripley dies in that one. That's the whole. That's it. Should have ended there.
Yes.
I think, looking on paper, 10 odd years ago, whatever it may have been, yes, we're going to find out the engineers, we're going to find out about the home, like la 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 la, AI. Like, I love the themes, I love the kind of conceptual design of where this new trilogy could have gone. Unfortunately, I think there was either too many chefs in the kitchen, too many studio execs making decisions on certain things, too many ideas that were flying around. They should have just stuck with a very kind of thematic theme, or a thematic line of, we're going to look at this, we're going to explore this, we're going to have these characters that you're going to try and grow to love and whatnot. But it's just been too much of a hodgepodge, too much of everything's been sliced and diced and everything thrown into the mix, trying to rehash old ground for a new generation. I don't know. You're always going to have fans of the original that are going to be vehemently shielding the original IP, so you'd have to go a different direction. I don't think this was the right direction they went down. Creationism and whatnot, and like the life cycle of the aliens and whatnot, would have been dealt with in a better way if it was handled a lot more sophisticated in that kind of sense. I'm not sure. Yeah, so loss of identity, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's time to put the franchise away for a long while, or just maybe wrap it up somehow, do something to connect the dots, and then just, because the great franchises that we talk about, like, are the ones that they had their run and they stopped. They didn't keep coming back, and it just becomes too messy. Too many people touching it, too many things happening, and they start making decisions out of convenience, and it just doesn't work. Just let it be what it was and enjoy it and appreciate the run we had and leave it alone. But
Yeah, exactly.
so that was fun. Well, cool. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear how we stand on this one. But anyway.
Well,
So,
let us know, for the people that are hearing this, let us know your thoughts. Would like to know. We talk a lot of stuff, but maybe we've missed a lot of things out that we haven't really thought about. So yeah,
Could be, but I don't know. So if I know some people talk about deleted scenes, and it makes more sense if you see this deleted scene or that deleted scene, or kind of like in Prometheus, it makes sense why, because he encountered a creature before that. So, but it's like, just put it in the damn movie then and make it make sense, and don't make me go look at extra features.
Exactly.
there is a worrying trend now where films are becoming like 3 hours, 3.5 hours long, 4 hours long, and whatnot. What point do you get to? And it's like, to be able to condense something into like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't mind watching a 3-hour film, but when it gets to, if we're going down that line of a film now will become so epic in scale that we'll be sitting in the cinemas for 4 hours, that's when it's like, wow, okay, when is too much, So, but I totally agree with you. I don't think there should be any films where you have like the kind of deleted scenes or the extras are like something that you have to go off and see on your own, and becomes a mission to kind of then connect the dots yourself without, it should be in the theatrical version. Like, yeah.
No, extras should be, as the name says, extras. Lord of the Rings was a good example of that. The movies were long, and there was a lot of extra footage, but it didn't detract from understanding the cinematical version. If you're just gonna hide scenes from the audience to make them speculate, or just the hardcore fans that go and find it and then go, oh, you're stupid, you didn't get it because you didn't watch it. Come on. Give me a break.
I'm sure someone's listening and saying that right now, but it is what
Possibly.
it is. Yeah, I don't know very many people who are defenders of. I know there's some people who really love Prometheus, but I don't know if I've ever heard anyone really like a huge fan of Covenant. Like just, I don't. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't know many of them. Oh, well.
I find that I hope. Why would you? I mean, what is in this movie? I can understand Prometheus because it's visually stunning. If you really don't care about the plot or Alien at all, I think you take some enjoyment out of just watching the movie, in silence. But Covenant, no, they didn't even have that.
I think Covenant was just like a stretcher to get David from a planet to be on board a ship where he can now, whatever his machinations may be involved, but it's just it was just a kind of arc for him to get from this planet onto a ship and then continue his nefarious schemes, whatever they may be. That's it, really.
Yeah. It's too bad. The whole success of Marvel during this time, I think it changed a lot of plans for film because everyone wanted to have a connected universe, and we have to connect this and connect that, and we can't just have a movie that stands on its own. It has to connect to this, and it's just Don't get me started on Marvel, but yeah.
It's not all Marvel's fault.
I blame Marvel for everything. Yeah. I burned my toast. It's Marvel's fault. Okay, Marvel.
Oh dear.
But anyway, cool. Yeah, it was fun. So until next time, Anthony, where can people find you?
People can find me on the Page Chewing forums. People can find me on my YouTube channel, Horrible. And people can find my writing with my dystopian novel, Birthday Treat, and an anthology of horror short stories called Catbox and Other Strange Tales on Amazon.
Very nice. And Susana?
You can find me on the Page Chewing forums, on my channel, Den of the Weird, and on X as Chronodendron. My books, the first series, Timelessness, is available everywhere. The first book is Weird Gods. Can't miss it. And I have a new book coming up in March called Oublié, a standalone novel in the same universe. I only have one universe. So go and check it out.
Nice.
No Marvel shenanigans going on there.
Yeah.
No, just the one.
And you can find me on Page Chewing or all the links that are down below, all the other stuff we do. So come by and say hello. Or tell us how wrong we are about Covenant. Let us know.
Yes, please.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
This is Steve, Anthony, and Susana, the last survivors of this franchise, signing off.
Great.